Good afternoon. So
Hi.
nice to meet you in person.
Nice to meet
I'm
you as
Tara
well.
Hofmann, and I'm the president of AFS-USA, and it's really an honor to get to meet you. I've wanted to meet you for so long.
Wow, thank you.
Can you introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm Zdenek David, David being my last name, and I'm going under Z for
Said. Okay.
Z-E-D. And I owe a great debt of gratitude to AFS for coming to the United States, and I'm not exactly sure how it was arranged at this point. I was 16 years old, and the situation was very precarious in Czechoslovakia because the Soviets were imposing their communist regime in all the East European countries, which were assigned to their sphere allegedly by the Yalta Agreement or Yalta Conference. And Czechoslovakia was the only country which escaped this. I mean, we're officially in the Soviet sphere of influence, but there were ominous signs that this won't last very long, this ambiguous relationship. Clear sign was that when we were invited to come, it was an American proposal, what was it called? Marshall Plan, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And when our president wanted to come, Stalin said no. Mm-hmm. So then Masaryk said, well, I started as a free man and now we are enslaved. So, and interestingly enough, and I'm not sure how this was done or how I was selected to be, it was our Ministry of Education. But as it turned out, finally, there were 12 of us from Czechoslovakia, who were 8 were Czechs and 4 were Slovaks. As far as other students, there were none from the countries which were on the Axis side during the war, and that was a friendly decision of the American side. Mm-hmm. And as far as the other countries like Poland, which were on the correct side, so to say, they were already communist by then. Right. So Czechoslovakia was the only country which still in February of 48 had still this democratic system. And our President Beneš felt that we were protected because he had very good relations with Stalin, that in the late 30s, he obtained some documents showing that a couple of important Soviet marshals were plotting with the Germans to take over the Soviet Union or anyway, something of that sort. So Stalin had them killed. And Beneš thought that because having done his service to Stalin, Stalin will leave us alone. But unfortunately, it wasn't so.
So were you studying English?
Yes.
In
yes,
your
we
high
could, even during the war, even though we had to do a lot of German, they would allow private schools to teach English.
Okay.
So I learned quite a bit English.
It must have been very desirable to leave after the war to have the opportunity to go to the United States. Do you remember?
Yes.
I think you said something about perhaps it was the embassy or the Ministry of Education. Do you have any recollection of how?
I don't remember exactly who, but we were interviewed. I think it was some branch of Ministry of Education or Foreign Ministry of Czechoslovakia. And they were American representatives, and I guess must have spoken English with them. And I remember one of them asked me, how did I feel about the United States? And I said, oh, I think it's something like a paradise. And he said, oh, very nice.
But what did your parents think about you going home?
They wanted me. I mean, they supported it. They felt it was very good to get away from situation which was being prepared.
And during the war, you were able to continue to go to school, right? There was very little damage. Where in Czechoslovakia are you from?
Southern Bohemia.
Southern Bohemia. Okay.
But in 1938, which was kind of a long year, my father was, he was a judge and he was appointed in Prague. Well, my father got an apartment for all of us,
Okay.
and we moved to join him. Shortly afterwards, Hitler started demanding the German territories of Sudetenland. As far as countries which were represented in the selection process, I'm sort of jumping ahead.
Okay.
So, there were no countries represented whose governments were part of the Axis,
Okay.
nor any which were neutral. So there were, for instance, no Swedes who were neutral, but there were Norwegian students
Right.
who were on the correct
Right.
side. There were French students.
Right.
There were Dutch students, I believe.
We have, here we go.
But
We
there
actually
were
have,
no Spanish or
Right.
Portuguese.
we brought you the roster from 47, 48, so you can see French, Dutch, Norwegian, Czech.
British.
British. Yeah, very interesting.
So it was only from the countries which were on the Allied side. And
So did you know any of the other students who were selected to go on AFS before you were selected, or did you all?
no, completely.
Okay.
It was, we had no contact with
And you
England
traveled
or-
to America by boat?
Right. Where? There was a little hitch in the last moment.
Quite an
The
adventure.
other side, I and the other Czech student, there were 8 Czech students, but Zdenek David and I were selected to go to Putney School in Vermont. And then when we were supposed to leave, they discovered that Putney School wasn't authorized to admit foreign students.
Oh,
They couldn't get student visa.
oh,
So after a while, they decided to give us, the U.S. Department gave us visitors visa.
okay.
So we traveled separately, just the two of us. Went to Paris. I think there was some kind of an outpost of,
Yes, there was
because they did
yes,
kind of
the American
steer us
Field
a little
Service,
bit,
the
but I was
hospital.
kind of wandering through Paris by myself for
Ah.
a couple of days. I mean, they put us. So I did a lot of things. I saw Napoleon's tomb and visited Notre Dame. And,
Oh, wow.
Mona Lisa's picture and all that. And I had to go and get coupons for food because food was rationed. So I
Right.
went to the, City Hall
Okay.
in Paris and got. And I didn't know any French, but I could speak. I could get along in English.
Okay.
So
Wow.
that was
That's
interesting.
an added little bonus of the experience. So then the two of you traveled later, or did you?
Yes,
Okay.
it was only like 2 weeks
Okay.
difference. So then we went by train to Le Havre, and I think that there was some outpost of AFS, they arranged for us to stay.
Okay.
It was quite clear the reasons we were staying some sort of. This boat was one which was fixed up to transport American soldiers
Okay.
back and forth. So it was, they're like these huge spaces with these double-decker beds.
Wow. And how many days were you on the ocean? Do you remember?
I think it was like 8 days.
Wow. Wow.
And we landed in New York, and
Okay.
we were again accepted by American Field
Yeah.
Service, and I don't know which was in Manhattan where the office was, and
Yeah.
we're still there now.
When we were talking before, you lit up when I said Mr. Stephen Galati. Did you meet him?
Yes. I'm
Can you
very
tell me
sure.
about meeting him? Did you meet him when you first arrived, or do you remember?
Yeah, I don't remember too clearly.
Okay.
Yes. And I think I did meet him actually.
I'm sure he
Maybe-
was very
definitely.
famous for
Went
meeting all the
over- I
students,
know.
especially in the early
Knew about
days.
him.
So, How did you like Vermont?
A
lot of snow like Czechoslovakia?
Very much like,
Yeah.
very much. The weather was very much the same. A good deal of snow and not terribly hot.
And the Putney School, your placement was a boarding school, right?
Yes. Boarding there.
And did you have some families that you visited with
Yes,
or had a connection to?
interesting.
How did that work?
What was kind of surprising, was the pro-Soviet attitude in the school.
In the Putney School.
So maybe they got us because they thought it would be it's a big error.
A lot of rules.
I remember the first weekend they took us to see some socialist pictures in a library in Dartmouth.
In Dartmouth,
I
okay.
forget the painters were these, radical painters, denounced capitalist oppressions. So this was very odd, but I must say they didn't try to, stop us from. In fact, not all of them were in this line, but this Mr. Smith was one of the functionaries of the Communist Party.
Okay.
So it was kind of a shock in a way, but they didn't try to persuade us.
So during school breaks, you would go to stay with a family from the school, or
but then I was connected. Actually, this was staying with Mrs. Hinton. I was connected with the Granger family. Grangers from Washington, D.C.
Oh, okay.
Mr. Granger was the chief of the forestry in the Department of Agriculture.
Okay.
And their oldest son was a member of our class.
Okay.
And a daughter was a sophomore, while I was a senior.
You were a senior, okay.
And I think it was in that Christmas, or maybe it was a little later. There was a big dance, and they asked me to take Paula to the dance. So, and they bought me a tuxedo. As I mentioned, I stayed with them the first Christmas vacation, and then they would invite me actually in the summer to stay for a week, and awfully nice. And I know they came to my graduation from Harvard. I got my PhD.
Nice. So you're at the Putney School for fall 47 and spring 48, and then you graduated.
Right.
Did you graduate from the Putney School? Did they?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And the graduation speech was given by Mr. Lattimore, who later was being accused of communist sympathies.
Okay. So there were a lot of rules, but did you find the coursework very, very different from Czechoslovakia? What was your experience academically at the Putney School?
I thought it was very solid. I mean, I took Russian, and the person who taught Russian was an emigre from.
Okay.
And Mr. Smith taught history, and he was apparently a member of the Communist Party, but it didn't seem to be, and they didn't seem to have taken against me. And English, I took French also.
Took French, okay.
Also encouraged or wanted students to work on the farm, or in the woods, and it was part of the socialist nation. And also, my mother was very eager to have me learn how to ride horseback.
Oh.
So I just got from Mrs. Hinton. They actually had a group, who was riding horses.
Right.
So it was interesting, and we would go on little, trips on horseback and camp overnight.
And did AFS keep in touch with you that year? Did you have letters going? How did they check in with you?
The next thing which happened was for the summer after the trip, I could work on the farm at Putney, and I earned little money.
Okay.
Because I wanted to go to Harvard, but they didn't accept me. But instead, they knew about the scholarship at Wesleyan, which, for instance, which covered everything, and except for spending money. So I had to. And then, when I started at Wesleyan, that was the school. I graduated from eventually. My father wrote to them and said to AFS, saying I was there without any, money to support me for getting haircuts, such things, and that they took mortgage on their house in Blatna in order to pay for my trip to the United States. So the AFS actually gave me a scholarship of some sort when I was first year at Wesleyan.
Okay.
I'm not sure that
But you went on this bus trip, right?
That was before.
Right, before Wesleyan.
Right.
So we have some pictures here from some of these stops. I assume this map here is showing you your route, perhaps?
He's a Dutch student.
He's the Dutch student? Okay. And that must have been quite an amazing experience to travel across the U.S. Do you remember how far you went?
We went to Colorado, I believe, and then we turned around. We went through the Midwest, Nebraska. And then I think it was in Colorado, we turned around and then traveled through the southern
And these were
states.
all the AFSers from 47, 48 were on the bus?
I believe
mostly, right?
I think so. Like it comes, then you decided to work somewhere.
And tell me, did you stop in communities along the way?
Yes,
did you stay with
we were being
families?
hosted. Well, I'm trying to think. I remember a place in the south where we stayed in some kind of a, what do we call it, hostel. In every case, I think there was a family or families that took care. I guess the AFS had organization and they had members in all these towns. And Greyhound contributed the bus.
Okay. Okay.
Later on, I understood they were going all the way to California.
Yeah, they used to go all the way across. So.
But we stayed in Washington for a while, actually.
So you made the decision that you wanted to stay and not return during that academic
definitely,
year at
because it seemed
Putney,
to be
right?
a horrible thing,
Right.
being put under the Soviet.
Were you able to still communicate with your family?
Yes.
When you stayed?
It was possible.
So this amazing program that you were a participant on in the very first year has gone on to grow and expand, and this year in the United States we're looking to place over 1,000 students and send out about 500 plus students on our programs, and it's been a wonderful legacy of the American Field Service drivers and Mr. Galati, who led that effort to envision how through youth exchange, high school exchange, it was a step in the direction of preventing war and creating peace. Now, looking back on all these memories, what do you think about that in today's world? The importance of exchange, the importance for young people to exchange and meet young people from other countries. Do you think it's still as powerful an experience as you had?
Well, I was mostly interested in meeting Americans, except one, Jean-Loup Piguet. He happened then to live on the same floor at Wesleyan as I.
Oh, okay.
So we got together. He knew Mr. Galati.
Okay. So after your time at Wesleyan, tell us about your career and what you went on to do.
I got into the Soviet Studies program at Harvard. And master's degree in Soviet studies and then PhD in history.
Okay.
And then I got a position of instructor at Michigan University in Ann Arbor. I was helped to get that position by my advisor, James Billington, who was a Soviet specialist, who's unfortunately no longer living. And he helped me all along and in my career, which was. Then after that, I went to Princeton, where Jim Billington was then teaching Russian history.
Okay.
And after Princeton, I think I went to a place called Woodrow Wilson International Center for Scholars, which James Billington directed.
Okay.
And there I was on the staff doing various
So an amazing
things.
career, really.
And they named me a senior scholar, and so I had an office there and did some work for them and participated in these activities. I have published several books, I can show you,
Please.
about the religious reformation in Czech Republic under Jan Hus. And that was translated into Czech.
Oh, okay. Wow.
This is what I worked on at Wilson Center.
Okay.
And then later on, I got together with Professor Kahn to work on a series of books on Eastern Europe. It was the sequel to the Reformation book on Enlightenment and National Awakening 2 years ago. And this book
recently.
Masaryk.
Oh my goodness. So you keep very busy
still,
in your retirement, my goodness.
By the time I was 91.
Wow. Congratulations.
I'm 93.
That's wonderful. And did you start to go back to Czechoslovakia?
Yes.
After in the
My father finally advised me to go and apply for cancellation of my citizenship. I was then for a year in Finland. I was there not specifically so much for Finland as being close to Soviet Union, because one could go from Finland easily to Soviet Union, and the Soviets were fairly open. Actually, I was surprised. It got me into archive, and I could see some documents there of importance. So I spent that 1 year in Finland, in Helsinki, and while I was there, my parents were allowed to travel to Helsinki. And then my father advised me to apply for cancellation of Czech citizenship. And now one of my grandsons wants to gain Czechoslovak citizenship so that he would have free admission into the European Union.
Right. Some of these questions, these pictures were also reminders of some of the other students who went on AFS, and I just wanted to share with you that AFS Czech Republic has returned to programming in 1991-92. We were able to reestablish AFS as Czechoslovakia at that point. It later then evolved that AFS Slovakia became independent, and AFS Czech Republic today is a very vibrant partner in the AFS network. They host and send students and are very involved in European
programs. Students
coming here, but also exchanging multinationally. We have Czech students going to Norway, Italy, Latin America, and students from all those countries can also go to Czech Republic. So it's no longer just a U.S. bilateral program. So it's really wonderful.
No, I really didn't. Well, vaguely from Katja, I heard some references, but nothing sort of directly, or
Right.
didn't meet anybody.
And so the two ladies who really started AFS again in after February '89, Yara Masarova and Sharka Hararova sent
Yes.
a postcard to AFS International and said, "Greetings from a free Czechoslovakia. Come visit us." And we did. I was lucky enough to work on the program in those early days. And they were very helpful in making the connections we needed. And the first students started again in the 91-92 school year. So it's a wonderful story that AFS was able to return there.
I see. And what is it, students on university level or high school level?
High school.
So you have like 10 or so every year?
I believe this year it's about 40 to 50 students.
Wow,
Yeah.
really?
Mm-hmm. Each way.
From all of Czech Republic?
Yeah.
Well, I'm sort of amazed when I think of it, how I ever selected only 8 of us, 4 were Slovaks.
It's an amazing story how life works. Yeah.
I don't know whether my school had a very good connection with the Ministry of Education, which was the key selecting, but it just seems amazing because there was such a great, interest in it. I suppose so, I guess now.
Right. Well, I think it's a very powerful message from AFS that, the founders, the World War I and World War II American Field Service drivers, they really believed that by bringing young people together, that was the most powerful
but I mean,
thing.
there was obviously opening.
And the opening, and to be able to enter.
There would have been such an incredible, demand for this.
Oh, yes.
So,
yes.
How was I so lucky to, be selected?
Well, we're very lucky that you
was
were
that.
selected, and we're very lucky to have been here today to talk with you. And
story, plus you can see what.
I think there are many people who will enjoy hearing your story, and your life story is very impressive. Yes, thank you. Thank you.